Velthar made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He ignored the human teacher's warning. 72 hours came and went, and the celestial forces remained on Earth. At exactly 72 hours and 17 minutes after Donghyun Lim's visit, everything changed. The first sign was the silence. All across Earth, every piece of celestial technology stopped working at the same moment. Ships fell from the sky. Weapons powered down. Communication systems went dead. Even the simple lights in their helmets turned off. Velthar stood in his command center, watching as every screen went black. Emergency power should have activated, but nothing happened. His massive flagship, which had never failed in 2 centuries of war, was now floating dead in space. "Report," he shouted, but his communication system was silent. On the planet below, celestial soldiers found themselves trapped in their own armor. The powered suits that had made them nearly invincible were now metal prisons. Some soldiers managed to escape their suits, but they found themselves facing humans who were no longer pretending to be helpless. Captain Hyun-Soo Kang stood in the city square, watching as confused alien soldiers stumbled out of their disabled vehicles. He was no longer wearing simple civilian clothes. Instead, he wore armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal, shifting and changing as he moved. "Begin Phase 3, he said into a device that looked nothing like the primitive human technology the aliens had observed. Around the world, humans revealed equipment that defied everything the celestial forces thought they knew. Youngmyo, the former nurse, was now operating a medical facility that could regrow entire limbs in minutes. The children who had been taking notes in Donghyun Lim's class were demonstrating abilities that made no scientific sense. But the real shock came when the humans revealed their true technology. Bo Ram Nam, who had been working as a simple researcher, activated what appeared to be a basic computer terminal. But instead of the primitive interface the aliens expected, the machine responded with a voice that sounded completely aware and intelligent. "Good morning, Bo Ram," the computer said. "Shall we begin the demonstration?" "Please do," Bo Ram replied. Around the world, every piece of human technology suddenly revealed its true nature. Their computers weren't just advanced. They were alive, thinking beings that had been pretending to be simple machines. Their medical equipment could rebuild matter at the atomic level. Their transportation systems could bend space and time. Velthar watched from his disabled ship as human aircraft rose from the planet. But these weren't the primitive jets his forces had easily destroyed. These ships moved like living creatures, changing shape as they flew. They didn't just break the laws of physics, they seemed to rewrite them. "How is this possible?" he whispered to himself. The answer came in the form of a transmission that somehow reached his dead communication system. The face on the screen belonged to Admiral Sung Min, a human military leader who had been pretending to surrender just days earlier. "Commander Velthar," Admiral O said, his voice calm and professional, "I believe you're wondering how we've been hiding our true capabilities." Velthar could only stare as the human continued. "The truth is, we've been studying you for much longer than you realize. Your people aren't the first to discover Earth. We've been contacted by dozens of alien species over the past century. We learned from each encounter this was impossible. The Celestial Dominion had the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. They would have detected other alien visitors to Earth. You see," Admiral O continued, "we humans have a particular talent. We're very good at learning, not just facts or skills, but entire ways of thinking. We studied every alien species that found us, learned their technology, understood their psychology." The transmission showed images of human facilities hidden deep underground. Massive laboratories where humans had been reverse engineering alien technology for decades. Training centers where human children learned to think like dozens of different alien species. "But we also learned something else," Admiral O said. "We learned that most alien species make the same mistake. They judge other species based on their current technology level, not their potential." Velthar felt a chill run through his body as he understood what the human was saying. "You assumed we were primitive because our visible technology was simple. You never considered that we might be hiding our true capabilities. You never wondered why a species smart enough to build starships would still be using such basic computers and weapons." The truth was devastating. The humans had deliberately kept their visible technology primitive to fool potential invaders. While their cities showed simple computers and basic aircraft, their real technology was hidden underground, advancing at an impossible rate. We didn't just reverse engineer your equipment, Admiral O continued. We improved it. Every alien species that visited us contributed to our knowledge. We now have technology that combines the best innovations from 17 different civilizations. On the surface of Earth, mechanic Chanwu Park was demonstrating this truth. He had been pretending to fix simple combustion engines, but now he was rebuilding a celestial transport ship in real time. His tools seemed to work at the molecular level, rebuilding matter with thought alone. But technology isn't our real advantage, Admiral O said. Our real strength is adaptation. While you were studying our weapons, we were studying you. This was when Velthar realized the true horror of his situation. The humans hadn't just been hiding their technology. They had been learning everything about celestial biology, psychology, and culture. Every interaction, every interrogation, every casual conversation had been a learning opportunity. We know how your minds work, Admiral O explained. We know your fears, your instincts, your weaknesses. We know them better than you do, because we've been studying them scientifically while you take them for granted. The human ships had now surrounded Velthar's fleet. But they weren't attacking. They were just waiting. We know that celestial soldiers panic when separated from their equipment, Admiral O continued. We know that your species has a deep fear of being trapped in small spaces. We know that you cannot function effectively when your command structure is disrupted. As if to prove his point, reports began coming in from all over the planet. Celestial soldiers were surrendering without a fight, not because they were beaten, but because the humans had somehow triggered every psychological weakness the celestial species possessed. We also know, Admiral O said, that your people value honor above life, so we're offering you a choice. Surrender now and we'll treat your soldiers with respect. Continue fighting and we'll be forced to demonstrate capabilities that will traumatize your people permanently. Velthar looked around his dark command center. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? His ships were powerless. His soldiers were helpless. His enemy had revealed themselves to be so far beyond his understanding that resistance seemed pointless. But his pride would not let him surrender to primitives. Even if they weren't really primitives. Never, he said. Admiral O sighed, like a parent disappointed in a stubborn child. Very well, he said. General Myung Park will now demonstrate why that was the wrong choice. Commander Velthar sat in his dark room, staring at the small blue marble in his four hands. The planet Earth looked so peaceful from space, so quiet, so harmless. But every time he looked at it, his hands started shaking. The room was filled with awards and medals from 100 different battles. Golden statues and crystal plaques covered every wall. They all said the same thing. Velthar was the greatest soldier in the galaxy. He had won more wars than any other commander in the Celestial Dominion's history. But now he could not even hold a simple plasma rifle without his whole body trembling. A soft knock came at his door. Commander, may I come in? The voice belonged to Dr. Narration, his mind doctor. She had been trying to help him for 3 years now. Come in, Velthar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Narration walked into the room. She was a tall, blue-skinned alien with kind eyes. She had helped many soldiers before, but Velthar was different. He was broken in ways she had never seen. How are you feeling today? She asked, sitting down across from him. Velthar did not answer. He just kept staring at the small earth in his hands. His forearms were covered in scars from old battles. His face showed the marks of a warrior who had seen too much death. The Galactic Council sent another message, Dr. Narration said softly. They want you to take command of the new fleet heading to the Outer Rim. The rebels there are causing trouble. Velthar's hands tightened around the small planet. No, he said. I will not fight anymore. Commander, you are the best military mind we have. The Council does not understand why you refuse every mission. They are starting to talk about taking away your rank. For the first time in weeks, Velthar looked up from the blue marble. His eyes were filled with something Dr. Narration had never seen before in a warrior. Fear. They do not understand, Velthar said. None of them understand what we faced on that planet. Another knock came at the door. This time it was Lieutenant Kethmore, Velthar's young assistant. He was nervous and kept looking around the room like he expected something terrible to happen. Sir, Kethmore said, the Council has made their decision. They are giving you one last chance. Either you take the new command or they will strip you of your rank tomorrow. Velthar stood up slowly. His massive frame cast shadows across the room. Once his presence had made enemies run in terror. Now he looked tired and old. Tell me about the humans, Dr. Narration said suddenly. Tell me what really happened in that war. The room went silent. Kethamor's face turned pale. Even mentioning the human conflict was enough to make most aliens uncomfortable. The war had ended 3 years ago, but no one talked about it. The official report said it was a quick victory for the Celestial Dominion, but everyone knew something was wrong with those reports. The humans, Velthar repeated, his voice shaking. You want to know about the humans? He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, past the edge of known space, was a small yellow star with a blue planet orbiting it. Earth. The humans were still there as far as anyone knew. No one had bothered to check. 3 years ago, Velthar began, we found their planet during a routine survey. It looked perfect for our expansion. Rich in resources, weak technology, primitive people. We had conquered 1,000 worlds just like it. He turned back to face Dr. Narration and Kethamor. Both were listening carefully. This was the first time Velthar had talked about the war. I commanded the greatest invasion fleet in our history. 500 ships. 2 million soldiers. We had plasma cannons that could destroy cities and armor that could stop any weapon those primitives had. Velthar sat back down and picked up the small earth again. His hands were shaking worse now. The humans had just built their first colony on a nearby star. We thought they were so proud of that tiny achievement. One small settlement on one small moon. We laughed at them. Dr. Narration leaned forward. What happened when you arrived at Earth? At first, everything went according to plan, Velthar said. We destroyed their military bases from orbit. We landed troops in their major cities. Their leaders asked for meetings. They seemed ready to surrender. He paused for a long moment, staring at the blue marble. But something felt wrong. I had been fighting wars for 200 years. I knew when an enemy was truly beaten. And these humans, they were too calm, too ready to give up. It was like they were waiting for something. Kethamor spoke up nervously. Sir, the report said the humans fought bravely but were quickly defeated. They said you won a great victory. Velthar laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. It was the laugh of someone who had seen madness. Victory? He said. We never won anything. We never even understood what we were fighting until it was too late. He stood up again and began pacing around the room. His forearms moved restlessly, like he was still looking for weapons that were not there. The first sign came when we captured one of their cities. It was completely empty. Not destroyed, not evacuated, just empty. Like the humans had simply decided to leave. But where did they go? And why did they leave so calmly? Dr. Narration made notes on her datapad. She had heard rumors about the human conflict, but the official reports were sealed. Only those who had fought in the war knew the truth. Then we found Lieutenant Zexarun's patrol, Velthar continued. 12 of our best soldiers, all dead. They were arranged in a perfect circle, their weapons untouched. In the center was a message written in perfect celestial script. What did it say? Kethamor asked, though he looked like he did not really want to know. Velthar stopped pacing and looked directly at him. It said you should have stayed home. The room fell silent again. Outside, ships moved between the stars, carrying goods and people across the galaxy. Life continued as normal for most beings. But in this small, dark room, 3 aliens sat with the knowledge that somewhere out there was a species that had changed everything. That was just the beginning. Velthar said quietly, the real war had not even started yet. We thought we were hunting primitives. We had no idea that we had become the prey. 3 years earlier, Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. Earth looked beautiful and peaceful. White clouds swirled over green and brown continents. It reminded him of his homeworld before the wars had scarred it. Report, he ordered his crew. The planet has approximately 8 billion inhabitants, said his science officer. Their technology is primitive. Basic nuclear weapons, simple computers, chemical rockets. They have one small colony on a nearby star. Velthar nodded. This would be easy. The humans had barely learned to travel between stars. His fleet could destroy their entire civilization in a few hours if needed. What about their military strength? He asked. Divided into many small nations, the tactical officer replied. No unified command, no energy weapons, no shields. Their fastest ships would take months to reach other star systems. Perfect. Velthar had conquered dozens of worlds like this. The plan was always the same. Destroy their weapons from space, land troops to control the cities, and let their leaders surrender. Most species gave up quickly when they saw how outmatched they were. On Earth, Commander Minho Park was working late in his office at the Human Space Command Center. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands. He had spent his whole life preparing for this day, even though he had hoped it would never come. The first warning came from their distant colony ship near Proxima Centauri. Pilot So-Young Kim had been on a routine patrol when her sensors detected the massive alien fleet approaching Earth. "Sir," she had radioed back to Earth, "you need to see this. There are hundreds of ships out here. They're not broadcasting any signals. They're just coming." Minho had immediately called an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders. In the room were people from every nation and organization. Engineer Tae-Jin Lee sat next to diplomat Jin-Woo Choi. They all knew this moment would define humanity's future. "How long do we have?" asked Jin-Woo. "Maybe 6 hours," Minho replied. "Their ships are faster than anything we've ever seen." The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Earth was not ready for this. But Minho smiled, which surprised everyone. "Actually," he said, "we've been ready for this day for longer than you might think." Back in space, Velthar gave the order to begin the attack. Bright beams of energy shot down from his ships, destroying military bases and government buildings. The humans' primitive aircraft tried to fight back, but they were destroyed in seconds. "Landing zone secured," reported his ground commander. "Beginning troop deployment." Thousands of celestial soldiers landed in major cities around Earth. They wore powered armor and carried weapons that could melt through steel. Each soldier was trained to fight enemies with much better technology than these humans had. But something was wrong. The cities were not empty, but the humans were not fighting either. They stood in small groups watching the alien soldiers with curious eyes. Some were even taking pictures with their primitive cameras. "Sir," one of his commanders reported, "the humans are not resisting. They're just watching us." This was unusual. Most species either fought back or ran away in terror. These humans were doing neither. Then the human leaders arrived to talk. Jin-Woo Choi walked up to the Celestial Command Post carrying a white flag. He was smiling and looked completely relaxed. "Welcome to Earth," he said in perfect celestial language. "We've been expecting you." This shocked Velthar's soldiers. How did this primitive human know their language? They had only made contact a few hours ago. "I am here to discuss terms," Jin-Woo continued. "We understand you want our planet. Perhaps we can work something out." Velthar himself came down to meet with the human diplomat. Jin-Woo was a small man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He did not look like someone whose world was being conquered. "Your resistance is pointless," Velthar told him. "We have superior technology and numbers. Your people should surrender now to avoid unnecessary death." Jin-Woo nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right. We can't fight your ships or your weapons. We're just humans after all." "Then you surrender?" "Oh no," Jin-Woo said, still smiling. "We're going to resist. We just wanted you to know that we understand the situation clearly." Velthar was confused. How could they resist if they knew they could not win? "We've prepared places for your soldiers to stay," Jin-Woo continued. "Food that's safe for your species to eat. Medical supplies in case anyone gets hurt. We want to make sure you're comfortable during your visit." "Visit?" Velthar asked. "This is a conquest, not a visit." "Of course," Jin-Woo agreed. "But we still want to be good hosts." That night, strange things began to happen. Velthar's soldiers reported that their equipment was making odd noises. Computers would turn on and off by themselves. Weapons would jam for no reason. "It's probably just the different atmosphere," the science officer suggested. "We'll adapt," but the problems got worse. Communication systems started playing human music instead of military reports. Food supplies began tasting strange, even though scans showed they were not poisoned. Some soldiers complained that they could hear whispers in their sleep. "The humans are doing something," Velthar's security chief reported, "but we can't figure out what." Meanwhile, in a hidden bunker beneath the mountains, engineer Tae-Jin Lee was coordinating with resistance cells around the planet. The humans had spent decades preparing for this day. Every city had hidden computer networks. Every building had secret passages. Every citizen knew their role in the plan. "Phase 1 is complete," he reported to Minho. "They think we're helpless." "Good," Minho replied. How long before they discover the truth? Based on their behavior patterns, maybe 2 weeks. Their soldiers are already showing signs of stress. Above ground, Velthar was starting to feel uneasy. His soldiers were elite warriors who had conquered entire star systems. But something about this planet was making them nervous. They jumped at shadows and complained about bad dreams. The breaking point came when they found the patrol. Lieutenant Zexeron had taken 12 soldiers to investigate a human settlement outside one of their major cities. It was supposed to be a routine mission. Check the area, count the inhabitants, report back. They never returned. A search team found them the next morning. All 12 soldiers were dead, arranged in a perfect circle around their landing craft. Their weapons were still in their holsters. Their armor showed no signs of damage. They looked like they had simply laid down and died. In the center of the circle, written in perfect celestial script, was a message. You should have stayed home. Velthar stared at the scene, trying to understand what had happened. There were no signs of battle, no human footprints, no evidence of any weapons being used. How did they die? He asked his medical officer. Unknown, sir. Their bodies show no injuries. No poison in their systems. Their hearts just stopped. Velthar looked around at the peaceful human settlement. Children were playing in the streets. Adults were working in their gardens. Everyone seemed calm and normal, but now he knew the truth. The humans were not helpless. They were not primitive. They had been pretending from the very beginning, and somewhere in those quiet streets an enemy was watching him. The weeks that followed the discovery of Lieutenant Zexeron's patrol became a nightmare for Velthar and his army. What had started as a simple conquest turned into something else entirely, something impossible. Every day more soldiers disappeared, not in large battles but in small groups. A squad here, a patrol there. Sometimes they would find the bodies arranged in strange patterns. Sometimes the soldiers simply vanished without a trace. Sir, we've lost another transport, reported Captain Morden, his voice shaking. The captain was a veteran of 50 campaigns, but his hands trembled as he gave the report. 12 soldiers were escorting supplies to Outpost 7. We found the transport empty. The supplies were still there, but the soldiers were gone. Velthar studied the map on his command table. Red dots marked where his forces had gone missing. They formed no pattern he could understand. The humans seemed to strike randomly without any military logic. What about the human resistance? He asked. Have we found their leaders? That's the problem, sir. We can't tell who the resistance fighters are. Every human we capture claims to be just a normal citizen. Teachers, farmers, shop workers, but somehow they all know things they shouldn't know. This was true. The humans they questioned seemed to know details about celestial military tactics, ship designs, and even personal information about individual soldiers. But they acted like this knowledge was perfectly normal. In a small house on the outskirts of the city, Captain Hyun Soo Kang was meeting with other human resistance leaders. He had been a soldier before the invasion, but now he was something else, something the aliens had never faced before. How many alien patrols have we redirected this week? He asked Youngmi. Oh, a woman who had been a nurse before the war began. 17, she replied, checking her simple paper notebook. They think they're following their own orders, but we've been changing their routes through their computer systems. This was the humans' secret weapon. Not advanced technology or superior firepower, but something much more dangerous. Understanding. For years before the invasion, humans had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find. They had learned how celestial minds worked, how their equipment functioned, and most importantly, how to turn these things against them. What about the psychological operations? Hyunsu asked. Youngmi smiled. It was not a kind smile. Phase 2 starts tonight. That evening, Velthar's soldiers began receiving personal messages on their communication devices. Not threats or demands, but something much worse. Detailed explanations of how each soldier was going to die. Private Kelvar was on guard duty when his helmet display activated. A human face appeared on the screen. It was a middle-aged man with gentle eyes and a calm voice. Hello, Kelvar, the human said. My name is Donghyun Lim. I'm a teacher at the local school. In exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. You're going to die. Kelvar tried to turn off the display, but it wouldn't respond to his commands. You're probably wondering how I know your name, the human continued. We've been studying your personnel files. Did you know you have a fear of enclosed spaces? That's going to be important. The recording went on to describe exactly how Kelvar would be killed, where his body would be found, and even what his last thoughts would be. Every detail was explained in the same calm, teacher-like voice. Kelvar reported the message to his commanders, but they were dealing with similar problems. Every soldier in the army was receiving personalized death predictions. And the worst part was that some of them were starting to come true. Belthar called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. The conference room was filled with some of the most experienced military minds in the galaxy, but they all looked confused and frightened. "Report," Belthar ordered. "Sir, we're losing soldiers faster than we can count them," said his intelligence chief, "but we still can't find the human military. Every person we interrogate claims to be a civilian. What about their weapons? Their technology? That's the strangest part. We haven't found any advanced weapons. No energy guns, no powered armor, no military vehicles. They seem to be using primitive tools and basic computers." Belthar slammed his 4 fists on the table. "Then how are they killing our soldiers?" No one had an answer. The truth was something none of them could have imagined. The humans weren't using advanced technology to fight them. They were using advanced psychology. In another part of the city, teacher Donghyun Lim was indeed preparing lessons for his students. But his subject wasn't mathematics or history. He was teaching human children how to understand alien behavior patterns. "Remember," he told a class of 8-year-olds, "the celestial soldiers are afraid of small spaces because they evolved on a planet with wide open areas. If you want to make them nervous, just talk about tunnels or caves." The children listened carefully and took notes. To them, this was just another lesson about how different species thought and acted. Meanwhile, the aliens' fear was growing every day. They had expected to fight an army, but instead they were fighting an entire population. Every human seemed to be part of the resistance, from grandparents to small children. The breaking point came when Donghyun Lim himself walked into Velthar's command center. He carried no weapons and showed no fear. He simply approached the guards and asked to speak with the commander. "I'm here to deliver a message," he told the surprised celestial soldiers. They brought him to Velthar, who was amazed that a single human would walk into an enemy base. Donghyun looked exactly like what he claimed to be, a simple school teacher with kind eyes and a gentle manner. "You have exactly 72 hours to leave our planet," Donghyun said politely. "After that, we will be forced to take unfortunate action." Velthar laughed. This small, unarmed human was threatening the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "And what authority do you have to make such demands?" Velthar asked. Donghyun smiled the patient smile of someone who dealt with difficult students every day. "I teach 3rd grade. I spend my days working with beings who haven't learned empathy yet. I'm very good at helping them understand consequences." "You're threatening me." "Oh no," Donghyun said, still smiling. "I'm educating you." "There's a difference." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "By the way, your soldier Kelvar has about 30 minutes left. You might want to find him before it's too late." 27 minutes later, they found Kelvar's body in a supply closet. He had died exactly as the human had predicted, at the exact time and place described in the recording. But there were no signs of violence, no evidence of how he had been killed. Velthar stared at the body and felt something he had never experienced in 200 years of warfare: complete helplessness. He was facing an enemy that could predict the future, control his soldiers' minds, and kill without leaving any evidence. But the worst part was still to come. The 72 hours were almost up, and Velthar was about to learn what the humans meant by unfortunate consequences. What happened next would forever change Velthar's understanding of what was possible in warfare. General Mi-young Park appeared on screens throughout the Celestial Fleet. She was a small woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not a military commander. But when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Commander Velthar," she said, "you have chosen to continue this conflict. I want you to understand what that means." Suddenly, every celestial soldier throughout the galaxy received the same message simultaneously. Not just those on Earth, but troops stationed on distant worlds, ships traveling through space, even soldiers on leave at their home planets. Somehow the humans had reached across impossible distances to contact them all at the same instant. "How?" Velthar whispered. "Even with the fastest communication technology, It should take days to send messages across the galaxy. We've been studying your faster-than-light communication networks, General Park explained, as if she had heard his question. We noticed some inefficiencies in your design. We made improvements. This was impossible. The celestial communication system was the most advanced in the galaxy. It had taken their civilization thousands of years to develop. Your people are now receiving demonstrations of human capabilities, General Park continued. Not threats, not attacks, just education. On 17 different worlds across the galaxy, celestial military bases suddenly found themselves surrounded by humans who should not have been able to travel there. The humans had somehow crossed vast distances of space without anyone detecting their ships. But they weren't attacking. They were building. In front of each base, human construction teams were assembling massive structures in minutes. These weren't buildings, they were sculptures that seemed to defy gravity, floating in the air while changing shape and color. The humans worked with tools that looked like simple hand devices but could reshape matter at will. We're not here to conquer your worlds, the human teams explained to the shocked celestial soldiers. We're here to show you what we can do with a few hours and basic equipment. Meanwhile, on Earth, Velthar was experiencing his own demonstration. The moon, which had been empty when his fleet arrived, was now covered with human structures. Massive towers that seemed to grow like living things reached toward space. And these hadn't been built, they had appeared overnight. When did they do this? He asked his science officer. Sir, our sensors show the moon was empty 6 hours ago. These structures appeared in the last 20 minutes. General Park's voice continued across all communication channels. We want to be very clear about our capabilities. What you're seeing represents about 4% of our actual technology. We're showing you this much because we respect your intelligence and want you to make an informed decision. On the moon's surface, kindergarten teacher Yoonji Seo was leading a group of human children in what appeared to be a field trip. The children, none older than 10, were operating machinery that was rebuilding the moon's surface in real time. Remember what we learned about molecular restructuring, she told her students. You can change the rock into any shape you want, but you have to be careful not to disrupt the gravitational balance. The children nodded seriously and went back to their work. They were treating the reconstruction of an entire moon like a simple art project. Velthar watched this scene through his disabled sensors and felt his sanity beginning to slip. Children. Human. Children were casually performing engineering feats that should have been impossible for any known species. But wait, General Park said, as if she was reading his thoughts, there's more. Across the galaxy, every celestial computer system suddenly activated, regardless of whether it was connected to any network. On each screen appeared the same image, a detailed technical diagram of celestial military equipment. But these weren't the original designs. These were improved versions that were clearly superior in every way. We've taken the liberty of upgrading your technology, General Park explained. Your weapons are now 30% more efficient. Your ships are 40% faster. Your armor provides 60% better protection. This was beyond impossible. The humans had somehow accessed and improved every piece of celestial technology across the entire galaxy, simultaneously, without anyone detecting their presence. We're not doing this to show off, General Park continued. We're doing it because we want you to understand something important. If we can improve your technology this easily, imagine what we can do to disable it. As if to prove her point, every improvement vanished in the same instant they had appeared. Weapons returned to their original specifications. Ships slowed down. Armor became standard again. And now, General Park said, we'll demonstrate our true transportation capabilities. Velthar looked out the window of his flagship and felt his mind break a little more. The space around Earth was suddenly filled with human ships. Not hundreds, but thousands. Ships that were clearly more advanced than anything in the celestial fleet. But these ships hadn't traveled to Earth. They had simply appeared, as if they had been there all along but invisible. These vessels have been observing your fleet since you arrived, General Park explained. You never detected them because we didn't want you to. We could have ended this conflict at any time. The human ships weren't threatening or aggressive. They simply surrounded the celestial fleet like adults watching children play with toys. Why? Velthar managed to ask. Why didn't you destroy us immediately? General Park's expression softened slightly. Because we're not monsters, Commander. We're teachers. We believe in giving people the chance to learn from their mistakes. On Earth's surface, teacher Dong-hyun Lim was back in his classroom. But now his students included young celestial soldiers who had removed their armor and were sitting cross-legged on the floor like children. The first lesson, he was telling them, is that intelligence isn't about having the best weapons. It's about understanding when not to use them. The celestial soldiers listened with wide eyes as this simple human teacher explained concepts that their military academies had never taught them. Your people are very good at conquering worlds, Dong-hyun continued, but you never learn to ask if you should conquer them. That's why you're in this situation. Back in space, General Park delivered the final blow to Velthar's resistance. Commander, your fleet will now be relocated to our lunar facilities. Don't worry, you'll be treated well. Our children have prepared comfortable accommodations for your soldiers. Children? Velthar asked weakly. Oh yes. Dalnim Yoon's 5th grade class designed your new quarters as a social studies project. They wanted to make sure you felt welcome while you're learning about human culture. Velthar's massive warship, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was now being gently moved by forces he couldn't see or understand. His soldiers, who had been trained to fight against any enemy, were being relocated by human children who treated the entire thing like a school assignment. As his ship approached the moon, Velthar saw the impossible structures the humans had built. They weren't just buildings, they were works of art that seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. Gardens that defied gravity, waterfalls that flowed upward, architecture that seemed to be alive. Welcome to Luna Educational Center, came a cheerful voice over his communication system. It belonged to a human child who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. My name is Dalnim Yoon, and I'll be your cultural orientation guide. Please don't worry. We've made sure your rooms have proper lighting for celestial vision, and our food replicators can produce meals that are safe for your biology. Velthar, the greatest military commander in galactic history, found himself being welcomed to a prison designed by elementary school children, and the worst part was that they were being genuinely kind about it. When you're ready, Dalnim continued, we'd love to hear about your homeworld and your culture. We're always excited to learn about new friends. New friends? The humans considered his defeated army to be new friends. As his ship landed in a facility that looked more like a resort than a prison, Velthar finally understood the true horror of what they had faced. The humans weren't just more advanced than his people, they were more advanced than his people could comprehend. And they were treating this entire war like a minor misunderstanding between neighbors.